It's John Bon Jovi right here with The Blaze of Glory from the Young Guns 2 soundtrack. And just before that, we heard something we don't often hear on the Classic Metal Show, some Alda Nova.
How about that?
How about that?
I just posted up in the chat room a picture of me in 1987 with all the Bon Jovi shit on the wall.
Is that right?
What a faggot. Look, I'm even wearing the fringe Bon Jovi fucking leather coat.
Nice. Who was the girl?
That was the only other girl other than Georgetta that I was ever engaged to. Her name was Brenda.
Oh, yeah? Is that the girl from Michigan?
Yep.
Oh, that's the one, huh?
Yep, that's the one that's been married a whole lot of times. But, yeah, a smart move that I didn't marry that one, I think. But, yeah, that's Brenda and me. But the thing was... We were talking about. I mentioned in the chat room that fucking Young Guns 2 is like a faggot admission of mine that I love that album.
Sure.
And then I was like, yeah, I know I have pictures of me with all kinds of Bon Jovi shit on the wall, so I just real quick went and found one.
Well, that's what was happening at the time.
It was. It definitely was. So. But I bet you didn't have any Bon Jovi shit on your wall.
No, I did not.
Of course you didn't, let alone shit that was just tore out of magazines and taped on the wall.
Nope, didn't have anything like that.
Yeah, like Chris was wild in the streets.
Yeah, he was. He was wild in the streets.
Of course, some things never change. You notice the girl's holding an empty bottle of booze.
Sure. What is that, Wild Turkey?
Southern Comfort.
Southern Comfort?
That was my drink in Korea. If I was drinking whiskey, it was Southern Comfort, but most of the time it was Korean soju.
Sure.
In that particular picture, it was an empty bottle of SoCo.
Nice.
Yeah, I used to throw it down a little bit. Still kind of
used to.
Yeah, last night we drank we did shots all the way through a whole bottle of Fireball as well as half of a gallon of fucking Jack Daniels.
Wow. So. Well, you must have a stomach of steel or something to be. Now you were drinking that straight, right?
What the Fireball? Yes, the Jack Daniels. I was doing Jack and Cokes.
I gotcha.
She was doing Jack and water. She's got the iron stomach. Jack and water.
Jack and water. See, I can't imagine adding water to any drink.
Yeah, that's what the ice cubes are for.
Yeah, I know, but just add water.
Yeah, I'm not a fan. I need that little, especially with Jack Daniels. I need that little bit of taste. The taste itself, just straight Jack Daniels, doesn't do much for me. I need that little bit of flavoring to it, I guess.
Yeah, I know. I feel the same way. I mean, I'm not a huge drinker, but I can't imagine putting water in anything.
Yeah, I'm not but that seems to be a popular thing, man. There's a lot of people that drink whiskey and water, sure. Whatever kind of whiskey and water is their drink.
Your whiskey in your water and sugar in your tea.
Right.
Hail and kill, caller. You're on the air.
Chris was wild in the streets and I was wild for the meat.
God damn. Tim, you never cease to amaze me.
He's gone.
He's gone. He's a drive-by caller.
Wild for the meat.
Wow.
It's wild.
Tim, see, I just don't understand why some people don't like Tim.
Because, God forbid, he admitted that he fucking was gay at one point.
Yeah. So what? And he makes fun of it, and I like that.
I do. I have no problem with it.
I think that's funny.
Right.
I love it.
I think it's funny, too.
Yeah. Well, getting back to something we were discussing before we talked to Bob, which Bob is always a welcome guest on the show. I know you don't care for him all that much, but
I really don't like Bob much.
But we were talking about last week's show, and he said he liked it, and Jackal said he liked it, and it was very topical last week, very PC.
Right.
And we didn't get to all the topics last week, and I don't want to repeat the same show, but I do have a couple of topics that are PC related that I know that are going to get you riled up again.
All right, I'm in.
But before we do that, and I know that you were out running around or hanging out with your chick last night or whatever, but I had asked you to pull a clip for me. You probably didn't have a chance to do that.
I did not.
But that's okay. It's not a big deal. So, yes.
I actually did look. I couldn't find the damn show.
Well, yeah, that's fine. Well, anyway, it's real quick. I just thought it was just kind of funny to the relationship here. Back a few months ago, we did a segment on the show about Rick Springfield.
That's right.
And I had brought up the fact that I watched a Rick Springfield documentary, which, you know, I would have never watched in a million years, but I kept seeing it pop up on Netflix.
Right.
And I saw it. It was called Affair of the Heart.
Okay.
And so I watched it, and I told you that I was just mesmerized by the documentary because it was so good, even though I wasn't a Rick Springfield fan at all. But I watched it, and I didn't even realize this guy was still around or performing, or, you know, I didn't realize this guy was 60-plus years old already, and,
right.
You know, but he still's got a real hardcore audience. Well, on Opie and Jim yesterday, right at the very end of the show, one of their guests brought that up.
Right.
And he said the same thing. He said, dude, I watched this Rick Springfield thing, and I never was a fan and didn't care for his music, but I didn't know anything about the guy, and I watched it, and I was completely mesmerized by it.
Right.
And it sounded just like what we talked about on our show. It was just funny because... Did you watch that documentary by any chance?
I watched like half of it, and I actually fell asleep, but it didn't mesmerize me very much.
Well, I guess the thing that I found the funniest, and they brought this up on Opie Radio, is the fact that these middle-aged, chubby housewives are still chasing this guy around from city to city.
I know, he's like 60 years old, and they're still running around after him. Rick, I'm Jesse's girl.
Right. Exactly. So I just thought it was funny that they brought that up, and they were having, you know, full on discussion about it, because it was just like, yeah, I concur with everything they've said.
Right.
That's crazy. Well, anyway, this past week, Tuesday, was the election.
Right.
And, you know, the Republicans basically took over the Senate, strengthened their, you know, their hold on the House. Mm-hmm. And a lot of governorships turned over to Republican power. And, you know, any way you want to spin it, depending on what side of the aisle you're on, you know, the Democrats, oh, this wasn't a referendum on Obama. This wasn't that, you know.
How was it not?
Well, because only a third of the eligible voters came out to vote, and the 2/3 that didn't vote, well, those are the voices that matter because they stayed home.
So basically, it wasn't important enough to them to go out and cast their vote to keep it the way it was.
Right. Because they just assumed that, you know, it didn't matter. And the reason they didn't go vote is because they're fine with the way things are.
So basically, what was the number? Like 40% voted?
37%.
And that's lower or about the same as what it always is?
It's 1/3 of eligible voters.
But in the last 2 or 3 elections, that's about the same number, right?
And it's about maybe half.
Half of like the last election?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, well, sucks to be you, I guess.
So anyway,
you know, if you didn't vote, you went out and voted, didn't you?
Yes, absolutely.
Of course.
Right.
You know, there's no way not to. Especially where it's this fucked up. But here's what I don't know what you think, and maybe you're leading to it, but it doesn't matter who got in. Now what matters is that these fuckers do something.
I agree with that.
You know, I don't give a shit who got elected to what. These motherfuckers better start fucking repealing Obamacare or fucking repealing its funding. I'm giving them till Monday, but then I better start seeing it Monday.
Well, I agree with you. Now that they have a referendum and now that they've got the strength in numbers,
yeah,
they need this. They need to censor this president. They need to put him in a corner until his next 2 years are up and keep him in a corner the entire time.
Well, I guess he's going to get his first real test this week because I thought I saw it and I didn't really pay much attention to it. I just happened to see a news clip today that the Republican who's the new leader, the McConnell?
Yeah, Mitch McConnell from Kentucky.
Yeah, already sent a memo up saying that he better not try to fucking use presidential override or whatever that's called to push through the immigration thing that he said he was going to do, but waited till after the election to do.
Executive order.
Yeah, executive order. Mm-hmm. They said if they do that, they're going to take his ass and fucking have a huge constitutional fucking battle.
Right.
Which will effectively, if he loses that constitutional battle, it would effectively veto everything that he's pushed through that way through his presidency.
Right.
So please, I hope he does try to push it through and they can repeal every fucking thing.
Sure.
Personally.
Right. Well, the reason I'm leading up to this, and I don't want to get anybody bored with any of this discussion, even though it's relevant.
Sure.
To what we do. Well, several things here that were brought up or that I read through the week. Number one, let me see here. I got a message here. I'm trying to take a look. The number one thing was that what the heck? Hang on a second. I'm looking.
All right.
Oh, here we are. The number one is Ben Stein. You know who Ben Stein is?
Yeah, that real smart guy.
Yeah, he was on Ferris Bueller's Day Off. He was the guy who went Bueller. In real
life, he's like smart, right?
Oh, he's extremely smart. He was President Nixon's speechwriter, and I think he was a speechwriter for Ford and Reagan and George Bush 1. And he's an economist.
Right. Okay.
And he teaches. He's an economist, and he teaches at Pepperdine University.
Okay.
And he's a commentator on various news shows, etc.
Sure.
Hail and kill, caller. You're on the air.
Okay. I want you guys to explain something to me, please. Why is it not? I'm gonna ask this question, then I'm gonna hang up.
All right.
Why the heck is it not compulsory in America to vote? It's compulsory in Australia. If you don't vote, you get fined. And God damn it, that's the way it should be. Because having 40% turn up or whatever, that's just pathetic. Hail and kill. Talk to you guys soon.
It's an interesting point.
Well, and I agree with you, Tim, and I'll give you my knee-jerk reaction here. My knee-jerk reaction to your question as to why is there apathy in voting, because we live in such a great society. This country has been such a great, prosperous society that good or bad, it's still better than the rest of the world. So people just don't feel as if, life isn't so bad. I could be, I could be an Ebola victim in South Africa or something, Yeah. So no matter what happens, I'm still luckier than most of the people in the world, and they just don't take a interest in what goes on in the country, or they're happy or content or complacent with the way things are. They don't really care if it changes one bit or another. Chris?
It's interesting that it's mandatory to vote in Australia, though. That's a really interesting concept to me. I like that thought, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, it's like Obamacare. If you don't buy insurance, you get fined.
Yeah, well, that I'm not for. But
I'm
definitely not for fucking being fined for the privilege of not owning a product. That's fucking ridiculous. But the whole, to answer Tim's question, why is it not compulsory? It's not compulsory because these fucking, it all comes down to money. These guys know who votes and how many people vote, so they know how much money that they can spend or not spend based on the fucking turnout. And that's why it's not compulsory, because if everybody had to vote, then they'd have to spend more money. And if they had to spend more money, then there's less money they can steal.
Okay.
Honestly, but you don't think that's true?
Well, you think if these guys spent more money on their campaigning, that Sally in the trailer park with six kids hanging off her nipple would go out and vote?
I don't think that, but I think if it was mandatory to vote, like Tim is saying, they would have to spend more money to reach those fucking people.
Well, there might be some truth to that.
They would have to reach everybody instead of just making commercials that everybody skips in DVR.
Yeah, but do you think people vote in Australia in order to avoid a fine, or do they vote because they are truly engaged?
Well, I think I think they're probably more engaged because they have to do it.
Right.
You know, even though you get fined if you don't do it, you still want to know what the fuck you're doing. I would bet that the number is very low of people that show up because they don't want to get fined and just go bup, 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 and they're done in a second without even looking at the names.
Sure.
I'm sure there's some, but I would bet most of the people still pay attention, at least to some of the issues that might be important to them to vote on.
Right.
So, I mean, I don't know, but not Australian.
That's true. And of all the foreign countries that I would want to visit, that's the only one on my bucket list.
If you were going to live somewhere other than the U.S., would it be Australia?
I don't know enough about Australia to know. I don't know that.
Yeah, see, I think it would probably be Australia for me.
Yeah. I mean, it's somewhere of all the countries in the world that I would want to, that I voluntarily would say, yeah, I'd like to go visit. That's about the only one.
That's a long fucking plane ride, though, brother.
Yeah, 17 hours.
I've done that plane flight. Oof. That is not a fun ride.
Sure.
But it is nice. It's very nice there if you're there in the what they call the summer.
Right.
You know, our winter, their summer. That's when I was there, and it was nice. The weather was real nice. The people were fairly nice, and I had fun there. I loved it. I was there 3 weeks. It was great.
Nice.